I'm Julie Zenner along with Dennis Anderson, and here's what's coming up on Almanac North.
A UWS research collaborative is working with the shipping industry to prevent the introduction and spread of invasive species into the Great Lakes.
Minnesota Governor Mark Dayton has picked Lieutenant Governor Tina Smith to replace Franken in the U.S. Senate. We'll hear from Smith in her speech to Minnesotans.
And we'll have the ice safety tip of the week and the week's top business stories from Business North.
It's all up next on Almanac North. Hello and welcome to Almanac North. Thanks for watching. And any holiday parties and school choir concerts keeping a lot of folks busy. You've got grandkids.
Absolutely. I was at 2 different concerts this week. Lots of fun. Between concerts and lutefisk dinners, it's been a busy week.
This is your busiest time of year.
I think it really is.
Well, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, and let's
come
get
to
to our
work.
first topic.
There you go. All right. Thank you very much, Julie, and welcome everyone. Well, the University of Wisconsin Superior's Lake Superior Research Institute has launched a new effort to help keep the Great Lakes free of invasive species. The Great Waters Research Collaborative is a major project that will assess the effectiveness of ballast water treatment systems. Now, as the collaborative moves forward, it aims to be a voice for freshwater stakeholders for sustainable green shipping practices. And now tonight, here with more, is Dr. Matt Eyck, the director of the Lake Superior Research Institute. Kelsey Prihoda is Quality Assurance Manager for the Great Waters Collaborative. And Tyler Schwerdt is with AMI Consulting and is the lead engineer on this project. I want to thank all three of you for being here tonight. Big topic. Matt, tell us a little bit more about the great goal of the Water Research Collaborative. What's it all about? What are you trying to do?
Yeah, thanks, Julie and Denny, for having us here. We appreciate this opportunity to talk about the project. The project is really about taking a look at green shipping practices and trying to understand how we can help the industry become more environmentally friendly. One of our first and kind of major efforts is to deal with the evaluation of ballast water management systems. So we're currently underway. We've been active with that. We work at a variety of scales. And what I mean by that is the developers of these ballast water management systems are trying to create technology that helps remove unwanted aquatic organisms from the ballast water.
So then it's through ballast water that invasive species have entered the Great Lakes.
Yes, that's one of the largest vectors of introduction into the Great Lakes regions.
Kelsey, what kind of testing does a ballast water management system have to go through before it can be certified?
Right. Well, there are 2 phases of testing essentially that a treatment system would have to go through. The first is at a land-based facility, and that's a very controlled environment where there are strict standards for what we call challenge conditions, or the water quality with which the ballast water management system is tested against. And so it's a very rigorous process. It involves 3 salinities: saltwater, brackish water, and freshwater. And once a ballast water management system has passed that phase of testing, it would move on to a shipboard phase, where it would be installed on a operating vessel, and it would be tested over a period of at least 6 months in many different water qualities around the world. And through that process, there is enough rigor to know that that ballast water management system would be effective in all of the different situations that it might be faced with as that ship or the ships that it will be installed on travel to do their work.
So Tyler, tell us a little bit, if you can, about ballast water treatment systems. How do they work and how effective are they?
They're typically a filtration system combined with some sort of chemical. I mean, we've seen many different types of systems, especially at the bench scale, a lot of really interesting types. But that's a really common combo, is that you see filtration mixed with a chemical.
Are they on board ships?
Yeah, yes. So that rather than taking the organisms with you, you're immediately removing a lot of the organisms and putting them back in the source water with the filter, and then you're only having to deal enough chemical to kill the remaining organisms.
Historically, have they been effective?
There are systems that are known to function that way, and down to the levels of organisms that would be acceptable for by the U.S. Coast Guard.
Kelsey, are there tests going on right now on vessels on the Great Lakes where some of these systems are actually being checked out to see if they operate well in freshwater?
Yeah, sure. We just wrapped up a series of testing and some of the tests, the treatment system that we were testing in particular, some of those tests were done within the Great Lakes. So it does occur. There are a lot that get tested strictly in in salt water, but we, as a research collaborative, are aiming to be, hopefully protective of the Great Lakes, and are aiming to test treatment systems in a freshwater capacity.
Matt, now this all kind of grew out of a former initiative called the Great Ships Initiative. How did that come about, that you're kind of moving in a new direction now and really focusing locally?
So the Great Ships Initiative started with the Northeast Midwest Institute. The lead researcher is Allegra Cangelosi. She's still the lead researcher on this project and is happily working with the UWS staff on that. So that's where we really got our start. The Great Waters Research Collaborative is a project that's truly collaborative. It draws upon knowledge and experience from researchers from the University of Minnesota Duluth, as well as researchers from LSRI and engineers from AMI Engineering. Together, collectively, we bring 15 years of experience in testing ballast water management systems and understanding that problem.
Tyler, the Alliance for the Great Lakes says, and I'm quoting them, the Great Lakes have been under assault by aquatic invasive species for decades. Talk to us about that. Just how serious a problem has this been with invasive species in Lake Superior and all the Great Lakes?
Well, there's many invasive species that we can see here. I mean, zebra mussels
Most common?
are very common. It's a nice one to point to because people see it. I mean, I know that my parents' lake, Pike Lake, just outside Duluth, like you can't walk on the floor of the bed anymore because they're everywhere. They can cut your skin. So it's it can have a huge impact, and that's just one to point to. There's many other smaller ones that have food chain effects that aren't so easy for everyone to see, but there's plenty of them here, and they're.
It sounds like invasive species multiply all year round. Is this correct?
Zebra mussels in particular,
Yeah.
I mean, they have an on and off season. Ice here is really one of the best things for keeping them at bay. But that's once they get established.
So what will actually be happening locally here in terms of the research that's being done, and where will it be done?
The project is housed at the University of Wisconsin in Superior, so all of the bent scale testing, those testing of those novel components and ideas will take place at the in the laboratories associated there with the campus. The land-based facility is still the certainty of us being able to access and work there. That is unknown at this time. We're still trying to gain some understanding of its future. But we also will be working at the shipboard level, so we'll be sampling ships, ballast water within the Great Lakes region, and likely traveling around the world and sampling ships that ply international waters.
Kelsey, how cooperative has the shipping industry been over the years?
I'd say that they're a key partner in our collaborative. Right now, we're working on a project that we wouldn't be able to do without cooperation from shipping companies, ship owners. So we are actually going on board Lakers, and we are sampling discharge, ballast discharge, just to get a fundamental understanding of the types of organisms that are being discharged into Duluth Superior Harbor, and also being taken up from ports such as Burns Harbor, Indiana Harbor, Gary, Indiana. So we are unable to do that type of fundamental research without cooperation from.
I'll say that our project is governed by an advisory board, which is made up of stakeholders from around the region. And generally, the stakeholders are from academia, environmental agencies, the shipping companies, as well as shippers, their trade agencies, as well as regulators from both the state and federal levels. So they come together and provide us with guidance on future research objectives, and they've been very cooperative and supportive of this project.
Tyler, how close do you think the industry is to getting some sort of a ballast water treatment system that would be effective and would also be affordable for the shipping industry on the Great Lakes? Because it's always kind of been that cost issue that has kept widespread use of these systems.
Right, because there are systems that are known to work, that are approved. Lakers have a difficult job because they are typically doing very short voyages. So they have short time, if you have a chemical treatment, short time for them to come in contact with the organisms, and they're moving a lot of water up and down very quickly. So they do have extra difficulties, and they're also usually an older fleet. They don't have a lot of room on board. They don't have a lot of extra power to run these treatment systems. So retrofitting these ships is a great difficulty. And so that's why the work that we're trying to do, where we're trying to get as many systems approved as possible. We don't develop the systems, we just want to get as many systems approved so that you can find something that doesn't take up much space on the ship, or that is very low power, or so that whatever the constraints are, that the ship owners have something to choose from.
And are there a lot of new players kind of jumping into the industry and trying to get systems tested, or how many new tests come your way, or do you expect to come your way per year, for instance?
That's an interesting question. So for us to do the certification testing, we have to work cooperatively with an independent laboratory, and there are certified agencies around that help govern that process. We don't know just yet for this coming spring what our test schedule it will look like. My sense is that there is a lineup of candidates ready to go.
So once you've tested, to whom or what agency do you take your research findings?
So we work with what's called an independent laboratory. That's a Coast Guard, U.S. Coast Guard approved organization that basically is sort of an overseer of all the testing that we do. So they are the ones that we would take our test findings to, and they would be the ones that would review everything that we've put together and submit that to the Coast Guard on our behalf and on behalf of the treatment system developer.
Tyler, the port here is so important to our community, our economy. Why is the research that you folks are doing so important to the port?
Well, because we both need shipping, and we also both need fishing. We can't sacrifice one for the other. So we need something where the ships can continue to do their work, but doesn't, decimate the local fishing population. We can still recreationally use it as well. So we've got to find that. That's part of the work, is finding the balance. We don't want to be too heavy-handed with regulation or let them kind of run free either.
Matt, you said that this was really the first step of what you're doing, focusing on the ballast water. Where do you see the Great Waters Collaborative kind of moving in the future? What other areas might you potentially work with?
One of the areas that we're interested in is taking a look at hull fouling and chain fouling. So, when we talk about ballast water, we're talking about water on the inside of a ship that's transported inside. But there are also organisms like the zebra mussel or the quagga mussel that could be attached to the outside of the ship that could be transported across different regions, and around the world. So there's a potential there for us to take a look at some methods of treatment. There's possibilities for us to expand our research to the Mississippi River. We know that there's invasive fish and other mussels there and they have a large barge combination, tug barge combination of ships that move up and down the Mississippi River.
You are fighting invasive species in this country. Are you finding other countries around the world doing the same thing, or are you a lone wolf?
We are not a lone wolf. This is an international problem. We do transport organisms from here that could become invasive in other countries. There's agencies around the world, a handful of them, that are doing similar kinds of research like we are. We work collaboratively with them. We meet at least once a year somewhere around the world to talk about our research findings.
And opportunities for students at UWS to join in the research?
Absolutely, yeah. That's one of the best things about this collaborative effort is our ability to give students some non-traditional learning experiences, particularly through the bench scale level of testing that we do, where we test novel ideas that people have for developing management systems, and we have students involved in that process.
All right.
Matt, Kelsey, Tyler, thank you so very much. Great discussion. Big problem. Sounds like you're really working at it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Many people drown because they can't pull themselves out of the water. The weight of water-soaked clothing, combined with the slippery surface of the ice, makes escape extremely difficult. Carry a couple of long nails or homemade ice picks in your pocket to help escape from the ice hole. How should you react if you do break through? First, try not to panic. Your winter clothing, especially a snowmobile suit, will not drag you down. Instead, if you remain calm, it will offer excellent flotation from the air trapped inside. Turn toward the direction you came from. Place your hands and arms on the surface of the ice. This is where your ice picks come in handy. While kicking with your feet, use your ice picks to pull yourself onto the surface. Work forward on the ice while kicking your feet. Once you get to solid ice, roll away from the hole before standing.
Minnesota Governor Mark Dayton this week appointed Lieutenant Governor Tina Smith to the U.S. Senate. Smith will replace Al Franken, who will resign following allegations of sexual harassment. For the first time in history, Minnesota will have 2 female senators when she takes office. Smith talked about her goals in the Senate in her acceptance speech.
Though I never anticipated this moment, I am resolved to do everything that I can to move Minnesota forward, and I will be a fierce advocate in the United States Senate for economic opportunity and fairness. This is a difficult moment for us, but even now I am filled with optimism for Minnesota, this big, welcoming, diverse, and resilient place that has been my home for over 30 years. As Lieutenant Governor, I have traveled everywhere in Minnesota. Being elected Lieutenant Governor is a little like being invited into Minnesota's living room. I've talked to people in their homes, at their jobs, in city halls, and their places of worship. We've talked about what worries them, what keeps them up at night, and what gives them hope. And I've learned a lot from that. You know, Minnesota has one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country. But I've heard stories from families who are working 2 full-time jobs and still struggling to find a good place to live. Minnesota has some of the best schools, but I've talked to moms who are faced with driving 60 miles every day to get their child to a good preschool. Minnesota has more people with health insurance than almost any other state. Yet I've talked to farmers who have lost access to their longtime doctors and can't afford the health insurance premiums. Minnesota iron ore built this country, yet I've talked to rangers who are worried about the future of their small towns. And Minnesota is often named one of the best states for women. Yet even here, women still earn less than men, and women of color and Native American women have even fewer opportunities. We have so much opportunity in this state and this country, but we have so much work to do to make sure that that opportunity is broadly shared. Paul Wellstone said often, we all do better when we all do better. And I will serve Minnesota in the United States Senate, guided by these words and led by these Minnesota stories. Just over 3 years ago, we re-elected Senator Franken with a mandate to work hard to keep Minnesota moving forward, to improve people's lives. And with his decision to step down, it is the responsibility of our governor to appoint a person to fill this vacant spot. Now my job will be to go to Washington, D.C. to continue working on behalf of Minnesota and our country. And I will do this in my own way, using my own best judgment and experience, but always with the people of Minnesota in mind. And it is up to Minnesotans to decide for themselves who they want to complete Senator Franken's term. They will make this decision in a special election next November. I will run in that election, and I will do my best to earn Minnesotans' support. And I believe the way to do that is by being the best senator that I can be. I want to thank Senator Franken for his service. He has been a champion for our state, and I know that he and Franny will continue to work for our state and for our country. And I also want to thank Senator Franken's excellent staff, both here in Minnesota as well as in Washington, D.C., for your work to help Minnesota. You do that every day in thousands of ways. This work continues, and we still need you. I want to take a moment also to express my deep gratitude for the opportunity to serve with Governor Mark Dayton. I have seen how Mark brings integrity, heart, and a passion for justice to his job. He is an exceptional leader, and I am so proud to have served with him. The men and women in our office and the 34,000 people who serve in state government are some of the best, most dedicated public servants that I have ever known. I have loved this job, and I have been so proud to call you colleagues. My family is with me here today. Didn't want to stand too close, My husband Archie, our sons Sam and Mason, and their wives and our daughters, Emily and Julia. I'm so proud of you. I love you, and I'm so grateful for your love and support. Finally, I want to thank the people of Minnesota for this opportunity to have served you in the state capitol, and for your support and encouragement as I become your senator. You know, the governor keeps a sign in his office that says, "None of us is as smart as all of us." And I will take my own version of that sign with me to Washington, D.C. as a reminder of the wisdom of my fellow Minnesotans. This Senate seat has a strong, abiding legacy of service and social justice that runs back to Paul Wellstone, Walter Mondale, Gene McCarthy, and Hubert Humphrey. As I take this new position in this extraordinary time that we're in, I will do my best to move this legacy, but to move it forward towards a better, more inclusive, and more just future for all of us. Sexual harassment is disrespectful to people, and it can't be tolerated. And that, I think it's quite interesting. I think we are in the middle of a sort of sea change in attitudes about this right now. I think in some ways this sea change is being led by young women who tell women of my generation that maybe some of the things that we put up with during our lives we shouldn't have to put up with. And that is a good thing, and it is so important that we don't slide backward, that we continue to move forward. And I can promise you that I will be working on these issues when I get to Washington, D.C., but that'll be for January.
It's time now for the business news from the editors at Business North. Polymet Mining announced on Wednesday that it has submitted an updated permit to mine application to the Minnesota DNR. The company wants to extract copper, nickel, gold, and other precious minerals from its mine near Hoyt Lakes. Included in the update is the company's financial guarantee to cover the costs for environmental remediation if Polymet is unable to meet its goals and government guidelines. President and CEO John Cherry said Polymet's plan ensures its work will get done, and he says both the environment and taxpayers will be protected.
Cleveland Cliffs has acquired real estate west of Nashwauk that previously was part of a bankruptcy acquisition by Chippewa Capital Partners. The properties include parcels that were leased to SR Steel Minnesota before the company declared bankruptcy. Cliffs president and CEO has claimed that Chippewa Capital Partners is not financially capable of developing the Nashwauk site. Cliffs said it purchased the mineral lease rights when Chippewa did not submit lease payments on schedule. A business dispute already exists between Cliffs and Chippewa Capital over the mine site.
2 century-old area banks will combine their resources pending regulatory approval. Minneapolis-based Park Financial Group and Duluth-based Pioneer Bank announced a purchase agreement under which Park State Bank and Pioneer National Bank will merge. When combined, the new organization will have 4 Duluth offices and 1 in Minneapolis. The deal is expected to close late in the first quarter of 2018. Current management and employees are expected to play key roles in the new organization. For more on these and other stories, visit businessnorth.com.
If you have a comment on our show, call now. Dial 218-788-2849 to leave a message. You can also send an email to almanacnorth@wdse.org. And visit the WDSE website for updates on our broadcast schedule, the latest on your favorite local shows, and special events here at the station. And Denny, one of those special events is coming up Monday night. Folks are invited to come here to the studio to share some stories about Duluth parks for a new documentary that we're working on.
And Duluth certainly has a long history of parks in this city. I know some are probably lost to history, but boy, we've got just dozens and dozens and dozens of parks in this town.
Dozens of parks and hundreds of stories, I'm sure. So if you have a story about Duluth parks, make sure you take advantage of that and come and share. For Denny and the crew here at WDSE, I'm Julie Zenner. Have a great weekend.